I think I started off thinking, oh, I'd love to go into med. But yeah, I think I realized soon after that that's probably not the way I want to go down. It was when I went into anatomy class and working with cadavers. So I don't really know if this is what I want to be doing. But I just had this feeling that it was the business side that I really liked, one that I never really explored. And I came across AI, and that was something that we all know has been building, and there's so much happening in that space. And it was more of like something that would challenge me more. And so I went into AI and supporting AI companies, generative AI, chat GPT. That's probably something that's in that public facing, and everyone's talking about it. But there's so much more happening.
Right, welcome back everyone to another episode of Pats Uncovered. We are on a bit of a roll these days, coming in person, getting a lot of these recorded, and I am so excited for today's guest, which again, I keep saying these all the time. It's a bit of a spark. I'm like, I've got an amazing guest again, because they're all amazing and I want to hear everyone's different life stories, but I've got Kaushalya with me. Thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm glad. I know you were kind of saying you were a little bit nervous, but I'm hoping throughout the session that it'll all be very calm and like you just basically end up telling me your life story because that's kind of what we're here for, I think. But I hope it doesn't get too much in the way.
Let's hope not.
Tell us a bit about yourself and exactly who you are so our listeners can figure out what we're going to be listening to today.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so, Kaushalya, I don't know. People pronounce it very differently. Cash, a lot of people say. So I work in the startup AI, was in MedTech space, and just helping out with the commercialization side of things for a lot of companies. I guess that's a bit of a very quick overview of who I am and what I do, more from the career side of it. Apart from that, I am Sri Lankan Australian. I
love that. And I really love that because we're going to dive right in to figure out all the rest of the details behind this. Very quick intro. But let's actually just go straight into it. So bring me back to childhood, high school, wherever you want to start. Where was like the original, like, this is what I'm going to be when I grew up? Like, what was the original thoughts?
Yeah, I guess it's changed over time what I want to be when I grew up. But I guess I started, if we thought about maybe high school, uni days. So started off really liking that science, biology side of things. I think there was probably a bit of influence from the parents as well because they're Southeast Asian. And for them, lawyer, doctor, engineer, those are the main things. Not that they actually told me to be anything, but there was these are really good roles, jobs to be in. So that was probably a little bit of the influence of why I liked those. Also loved all of those medical shows as well, like Grey's Anatomy, and
we are kindred spirits.
Yeah. So that may have also influenced what I went into. Went down that biology, science, chem, physics, all of those sort of subjects in high school, and that probably flowed through into what I did in uni. So I went into biomedical science at uni, and I guess that was a lot of the anatomy and physics and biology that I worked on, and chemistry as well. Probably second year was probably when I realised that maybe this isn't the path that I really want to go down.
So did you go into biomed in the context of like a stepping stone to med, or was that because I've had friends who have done like, no, I wanted to do biomed because that is what I want to do, which is not the majority of people who do it, but was that where it was kind of coming in from?
I think I started off thinking, I'd love to go into med, I think I realized soon after that that's probably not the way I want to go down.
I get it. I did the exact. I mean, like, I didn't actually end up doing it, but I was like very close to it. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God I didn't do it. I would not have done well in that area at all. I'm very okay with it now.
I think the exact same thing now.
So second year, you're realizing this might not be the path. What was happening then? Like, what were there changes? What were you kind of trying to figure out?
Yeah, well, weirdly, it wasn't like a drastic change or anything. It was when I went into anatomy class and working with cadavers, so like dead bodies, and going through all of that and identifying particular nerves and all of that. I'm just like, I don't really know if this is what I want to be doing. So I think I came to that realization. I'm just like, I don't think I want to be a doctor. But I also thought, well, I still want to finish this degree. I don't want to just pull out because I also don't know what it is that I want to be doing either. That's probably how that happened. It wasn't really a huge drastic thing. It was probably more of a realization after going into anatomy class.
I'm not gonna lie, there's an image of you just standing over like a dead body, like, no,
not for me. Out I go.
It's like, thank you very much. I'm gonna head away. Isn't it bizarre? Of like when you were saying, I'm like, God, we're like what, like 18, 19 that you were probably doing this. I'm like, why do we have access to this kind of stuff? You know, and you're like, you think about it, you're like, no, I shouldn't be able to do this.
I feel like there should be a warning or something like this is what you're going to expect.
Yeah, we really don't get a lot of that, do we, in school and stuff? People just don't tell you the realities of most careers. You're like, ooh.
Yeah, very true.
It's like those 3 highlights, got to hit them all. Yeah. So you finished out the degree, you pushed through 4 years later?
So it was a 3-year degree.
Yep.
Yeah, so pushed through that. I'm not saying that it was a struggle or anything to really get through it. But no, I did do it. And then it came to the point where I was just like, okay, well, what's next? Had friends that were going into the med side of it, had some friends that were going to the research side. And research was probably the one thing I was like, I am not going to this. I do not want to be sitting down with mice all day long, which is one of my friends right now.
And I was like, cadavers were a no. Mice are a definite no. I get it.
Yeah, pretty much. I was just trying to figure out what it is exactly that I wanted to do. So I didn't want to completely discard the whole science side of it. So I did think about maybe optometry, all of those sort of areas. But I just had this feeling that it was the business side that I really liked, one that I never really explored. And it's probably because it's not something I did, whether it was high school or into uni. I never actually went or tried out a business unit. So I'm like, well, this is, I guess, a good opportunity. I'm at that point where I'm trying to figure out what it is exactly that I want to do. So came across this course, which was a Masters of Business Science and Technology. And I'm like, oh, well, this sounds really interesting. It's kind of a mix of what I've been doing and what I want to do. So applied for that and got into it. So, yeah. That's how I went into the next part of it.
I think a friend of mine was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, so might as well just go back to uni. And it's a thing of like, it's an easier path of like, I think this might be something. Let's try it. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
So how was the bit like learning the different business parts of it, like understanding the kind of things you've never really been exposed to outside of the science side?
Yeah.
And also, how did that actually like combine with the science stuff? That's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I don't really know how the science really combined into it once I did the course. I reckon that was probably an eye-opener for me, doing that course. It was such a good course. I don't know if they still do it actually, but if not, please keep continuing with that.
We'll do a little shout out.
Yeah.
Like, bring it back, please.
So it was more of a business from the perspective of looking at it as a commercialization. So projects that you commercialize. And it was looking at startups, but it was also looking at doing industry-based learning. So you actually work with a company. So could be like CSIRO or like different companies that are working on specific solutions or programs or technologies for certain solutions. And what you do is you go and work with them and you try and understand what sort of like if there are other applications for that technology that they've currently got.
Yep.
So I got to work with an organisation called Southern Innovation, which was really great. And theirs was a lot on the mining side of things, which they focused on. And there was a group of us, so 3 of us were in a group, and we actually worked on that project with them, and we're trying to figure out what sort of applications this could go into other than mining. So it was a lot of doing research, seeing what the market is, and it really got you into that business side of it without it being just all theory based. I love that there was a practical component to it, and you got to actually work with a different organisation. So it was, to go back to what it really was about, I guess it was about understanding different businesses, understanding what their projects are, and then figuring out how you can come up with another business solution for their business model for that company and that project.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I think I just rambled a lot.
No, that makes sense. And I think, like, I remember in college there was a module we did. So I did a 4-year like maths and science, a statistics degree.
Yeah.
And a 4th year we had a statistical consulting module, which basically was very similar. Like the like lecturer brought in like a actual project that I think she was like actually solving, and we just got to side along do it like in mini groups and stuff, and actually like try and figure out ourselves. Literally like every single person in my degree would say like that was the only module that was actually worthwhile from that 4 years of degree, right? And worthwhile in the sense of like we could actually see the applications of like how we apply this in real life and real work and stuff, because everything else was like, let me do some calculations. I remember it was like, what will be the optimal share price based on like no like issues, no costing, no transaction fees and stuff, no market any irregularities and stuff. I'm like, that's not reality. How the hell does this work in real life? Yeah, exactly. So we never had that. Yeah. But seeing all that kind of stuff play out, it makes a difference. And I think it really just helps set you up a little bit better.
Exactly.
So the degrees that do it, 10 out of 10.
Exactly. I think it just really opens up what's out there, rather than you just sitting there like, okay, let's do this. Let's memorize this or learn this. But when you're actually applying that into the outside world, that really makes a difference. Yeah, I think uni should do a lot more the industry-based learning sort of work or work experience or something like that.
Anything real life would be helpful, which is usually like the best kind of feedback most courses get is like that one thing you did that was real life, amazing. Everything else could have done without, like
exactly.
Thank you but no thank you. But even the business thing, when you were saying, it's like we really just don't have an exposure to that at any stage throughout our like what education system or anything like that. Like would be nice to know how to do your taxes, and would be nice, like, I mean, it's just like the basics and stuff, like of how does all the world work. Like, give me a lowdown, like just things I need to survive. But things like this really do go such a long way.
Exactly. The taxes thing, I was speaking with my friends about this recently. I was just like, why did they not teach us this? This is like a basic life skill that we should have been taught. I completely agree. There's more of that outside world, and actually understanding how to do certain things is really important. Yeah.
I think it's just being gatekept for the sake of getting gatekept, but not a wild realization. So we've finished. So we did the masters, we've tried all the different parts. What was next after the masters? What were we feeling like at this stage?
Yeah, well, after masters...
Was it a bit clearer, I wonder?
After masters, I guess it was seeing, okay, well, probably want to go into a job now, find something. And luckily for me, I actually had one of my lecturers that taught me in my master's degree. He was CEO of an organisation, and I got an internship with him. So started off doing an internship with him. One of my other friends who was also in the same unit also did an internship. So we both did it together with him, and that was quite that's where it all started actually, into this whole working with startups, helping with commercialization journeys, doing all of that. And we started off doing internships, and he was kind of creating he already had this company, but making it into an actual program was what we're working on with him. So we kind of started from scratch. well, kind of like a startup in a way, where you're putting together a business model, figuring out what your brand is and doing all of that. So that was probably next step for me.
Yeah, that kind of experience is so hard to find.
Yeah.
Unless you're essentially having to start your own business from scratch. You're like, let me just figure it out as I go. Kind of me doing that right now. I'm like, I don't know what any of this means, but we'll chug along and then something will clear up itself up. But that is so cool to see at a very startup, like, sorry, John, the word startup is going to be stuck in my head now, but at a very really early level to be able to see exactly how things get built out at that scale.
Yeah.
So how did that go, the build and stuff, and where did that end up being?
Yeah, really good. So we worked on it for a while, and we started bringing on more people into the company, and now it's become a really great organization that is now supporting heaps of companies, early stage startups in MedTech. So all of these MedTech companies all across Australia, and it's also out overseas as well. So supporting companies in Japan and Singapore. So there's a lot happening, it's really nice to see, because when you think about it, we started off like with this whole like idea and just figuring out the business model and figuring all of that out, and building all the relationships and the partnerships, and now you're just seeing how it's done so well and supporting so many different early stage companies.
Okay. Oh, this is what I wanted to talk about. This is also really amazing that you're like, I don't really want to like throw away the science degree that I have and want to be able to work. It's worked itself out. I love that for you.
Yeah.
But I want, if you could just share a bit about what exactly that means in terms of supporting companies in that space. Because I know I've had this before, but I've kind of gotten involved in enough like startups. It's like I kind of get the idea now, but it would be interesting to hear that, because I think it's quite hidden a little bit in terms of what does that actually mean in terms of what do accelerators, or how does that work in terms of supporting other startups, especially when you're saying commercialization.
Yeah. Okay. So what we pretty much built was an accelerator program. We also had an early stage program, which was more of a competition. So maybe starting with the competition, what that was just helping out anyone that had an idea, so they could put in an application, and then we go through like this program where we help them really understand what are the basics, what do you need to know. So what's business model 101, how do you actually figure that out, marketing 101, what should you be thinking about in that instance. So it's all of those like 101 lessons that you need as a founder to figure out how do you actually take this idea forward. And then as part of the accelerator, that was probably a little bit later stage companies. They're still early stage, but later than the ones that had just an idea. And that's when you go into a depth, figuring out, okay, so what sort of regulations should you be thinking about? How do you actually take it out into market? Go-to-market strategies, what are they? So we actually brought in different experts that understand all of those areas, and they actually teach them and be like, okay, so this is what you guys should be thinking about. These are the frameworks, and these are templates, and then they work on that and put all of that together, and that will then help them go out and start fundraising.
Okay, that really helps. And I'm like, how do I get into these 101? It's an interesting thing, I think, where I'm like, yes, I've always said I wanted to do something. I'm kind of the other way around, where I'm like, I feel like I need all those like 101s to figure out what my idea is, rather than have an idea and be like, how do I make it work?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting like weird space to be in, where I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, but like something will come to me, I think. I don't know.
I'm honestly in awe of the people that come through with all of these different ideas, and they want to like build a startup out of it and go forward. I'm just like, it's such a huge job. It's not easy, and seeing them actually take that forward is honestly amazing.
But that sounds amazing. So you've been there for a couple of years now, right? Like,
yes. So I was there for about 4.5, 5 years, I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
So helping build out the MedTech space
specifically.
Yeah.
It was called the MedTech Actuator, and I started off there. And some brilliant people that came and supported them. So that was really, really good to see. So they were really early stage companies, but now seeing where they're getting to, and I'm sure some people have already seen some of these companies, just seeing how like you've had that chance to just work with each of those founders and where they're up and see them in press release and stuff. It's really great to see.
Yeah, and you were a part of helping them build that whole thing up. I love this. So 4 years in, what was kind of happening then? What was next for you?
Yeah, so next, I guess, so I went down that MedTech pathway. I came across AI, and that was something that we all know has been building, and there's so much happening in that space. And it was more of like something that would challenge me more. And so I went into AI and supporting AI companies. So went into a company called BIOMED AI, which actually invests and supports companies. A bit different, not necessarily accelerator, but yeah, it was a great move to look into that side of it.
I love it. Anyone that kind of randomly was like, this seems kind of a cool bit to do, like especially in the AI space. And I've had a few people come in, like there was an episode earlier, like Victoria, who she was a ballerina, like, as in Juilliard trained ballerina. I love telling the story, honestly. People should go listen to that episode more. She was just like, I mean, it was lockdown, and she's like, I don't really like, I mean, I'm obviously not performing because performances are red. So I was like, this thing called AI looked kind of cool. So I started looking into that, and that was like where a career pivoted. But is it like, it has become such a big thing, especially in the last couple of months, where it's just like, this is going to take over the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is kind of where you're at, supporting essentially companies that are building out to that side of things, right? Like scaling out to a lot bigger scaling out to a bigger scale. I don't know what the phrasing here going on here is, but yeah, what's that kind of work actually like for you now? Like, so what does that look like on a day I hate asking this question, but what does that look a bit like, not necessarily day to day, but like in general, kind of what does that support look like, I guess? Yeah.
So that one's with companies that are later stage. So more, I'd say later stage to what I previously worked with. So they're at that point where they've already got a product, and now they're actually going to market, but also expanding out as well. So we're at that point where we're supporting them with the scale up stage, as you said, scale up, at that scale up stage. And that's really interesting. Seeing those companies that have the product, and you're really now helping them with so many different things, like getting all those all the collateral together that they can then take out to potential customers, helping them with press releases, helping them with their investment strategies. So it's all more later stage work that you're helping them out with. And it's really interesting because the difference between what we're doing now compared to what I did when I was accelerators is that this is customized to each company that comes through. So each company gets different sort of areas of support depending on what they actually need. And I find that amazing that you can do that. And I love the business model.
This is so good. And I think we had a chat, like when I first reached out, when you're like, I don't know if I'm actually a good fit for your podcast. Like, I mean, I'm not really in, but I think especially with the way the world is right now, where there's so many like startups happening in the first place, it's becoming more and more commonplace.
Yeah.
But actually getting them to, oh my God, I keep saying the same words again, actually getting to actualize. I'm stuck on words today, but getting them to become a thing is not an easy job. And especially the people who support that. And I think I haven't heard enough conversations about that area of it, which is why I was like, no, I really want to hear this, because you're supporting all the tech businesses be who they are. And this is the other end of it. Like, it's very easy to be a technical person who could do the tech things. Like, I mean, there's enough resources out there that I'm like, I could probably figure out how to make something. Like ChatGPT helped me make a website the other day. I can probably figure it out, the technical, but like these are the kind of realities of actually making things happen and go out to the public that are so much harder, that people don't talk about and like don't cover and stuff. Without you, there would be not, like, I mean, people like yourself, not just you. Yeah, I'm sure you're not the only person.
I'm not the only one carrying this.
I was going to say the backbone of tech industry and startup here.
Well, that is a stretch.
But it does, I think it goes a long way to kind of help shed a bit of light on what's actually happening out there.
Yeah, I think generative AI, ChatGPT, that's probably something that's in that public facing, and everyone's talking about it. But there's so much more happening. There are so many different companies that we're working with, and you see the solutions that they're coming up with, or they've got, and they're taking it out now into market and getting the customers on, and finding the right investments. And it's amazing. And I feel like there's so much more happy AI, apart from just that generative AI side of it, that people should be talking about and seeing out there. And I hope that's what we can actually help out with.
Yeah. Any one thing you'd want people to pivot away from generative AI towards? Anything that's specifically that you're like, that's the coolest thing I've seen recently?
Oh,
anything jumping out? Sorry, it's more of like, I want to go see it.
Yeah.
Like, help me pivot out of my own.
Jump onto the website, you can see all the companies there.
No, I mean, I was going to ask that question of like, share the details so I can actually put things up of like where people can find a lot of the content around it. So we will share all that. But if there anything, boab.ai, is that what the website is?
Yeah, boab.ai. Yeah. For a second, like, yes, that's right.
Is that the website of Workout, baby?
That is it. I think they're all in different, like they're using AI, but in very different ways. So I wouldn't just say, one is more amazing than any of the others. I'd say they're all amazing. The way that they're utilizing AI is amazing, and they're doing such a good job. And sometimes I think like some of these ideas, like, why didn't I come up with this sort of stuff? Like, I could have seen that and be like, oh yeah, that's a problem to come up with a solution for. But they actually thought of that and took it forward. So that's good.
Oh, me every other day listening to my podcast being like, wonder what I could solve. Answer is nothing at the moment, so that's great. But no, I think that is a really interesting way of shaping kind of where you're at, what you're working on. And I'm so thankful for you coming in. We're probably, unless there's anything else you want to share about what you're up to. I feel like I've dug in quite a lot more so than I usually probably do, but I was like, I'm just so interested in hearing the nitty gritty bits.
Nothing to say. I was just like,
I think we all surprise ourselves of like how much we actually have to contribute. I do this all. I'm like, oh wait, I know things. I forgot I knew that. But let's jump into kind of our rapid fire questions, which are very not rapid. I feel like that's going to be the title of this segment, to be honest. I've said that. I'm like, these are not rapid, but I don't know what else to call them. So again, there's no right or wrong answers. They can be as long or short as you'd like. If you don't want to answer one, feel free to kind of say, not move along, pass along. Would be great if you did, because we'll have a collection of everyone answering the same questions.
Cool.
So the first question, what feels like the big secret of success to you in tech or maybe in the startup space?
Oh, big secret of success. Well, fail fast is probably one of them. I think it's important to know when it's not going anywhere. But also I'd say one of the really important things is to really understand about the market, and not in tech specifically. And if you're in a startup, knowing whether your solution is actually going to provide a solution to those that you're targeting. I think that's really important. So if that's not the case, have a look at it, pivot if you can. And the other thing I think is having a really good team. And when I say team, it's not just bringing in the right people, but it's also when you see, so that we can see, like we'll see different researchers, they come in with these amazing solutions, but they're not necessarily the business people to take it forward. So it's realizing that and being like, oh, okay, I need to bring in someone that can help with that business side or help with that sales side. And I'm not the person to do that. Coming to that realization is really important. Otherwise, if you think you're the one that's going to be able to do everything, it's going to be a struggle.
I think facing the realities is what this sounds like.
Whether
it's market or like the business. It's a really good point. Like, and I think it comes across in almost every career, whether it's startups or not. That's so important. Best and worst decisions that you've made in your life or career that stand out.
Oh, best and worst decisions. That's a interesting one. I'd say maybe I wouldn't say these are like best and worst, but things that I'm just like, oh, I could have like done that or done this. I think one of the things was as I moved from one job to another, I didn't take much of a break. And that's one thing I'm like, oh, like probably should have. Probably should have to kind of refresh and not go from one to another very quickly. Not that it was a huge problem, but I think I felt like I needed a break before that. I did take a break after that a few months down the track and went on a holiday, which was nice. But I do think it would have been nice if I took a proper break before I jumped into a new role. It would have been a better refresh and a restart for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the theme of the season. Take your breaks, people.
Yeah.
Take them when you can and to make the most of them.
Yes, yeah. I think previously I was like, oh no, I don't want to take sick leaves. I'm very like committed. I'm going to get everything done. Annual leaves as well. I think I was just very much focused on my work that I'm like, okay, I should actually be taking breaks. I should be taking a fair bit of annual leave and actually going for a holiday, which is something I learnt over the course of my journey with careers, which isn't that long of a career journey when you think about it compared to a lot of others. But just from that one place to the other, I did learn that it's important to really look after yourself as well, and just take that break for yourself.
Yeah, I like that. The next question is literally, in hindsight, what do you wish that you had done or maybe spent money on? And I feel like, is that the answer?
Pretty
Which is
much,
fair.
Yeah. I would say that's what I wish I had done. But I feel like you have to go through those, go through all of that before you actually come to that realization.
Yeah.
To realize, okay, well, I should be looking after myself as well, not just be focused all on work.
Yeah. Hindsight, that beautiful word. What have you valued less over time?
What have I valued less over time? Look, I wouldn't. I feel like how I'm going to say it is going to sound like, not necessarily. I think what I've valued more, if that's going to help to explain this, is a work-life balance.
Yeah.
Not saying that I valued less work over time, but I think I value the need to have that work-life balance, which I think is really important, rather than having your whole life focused on just work, making sure that you've got time for everything else and everyone else, but also time for yourself as well. So it's not necessarily what I valued less, but it's more that I realize that I need to make sure that the work-life balance is there.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the major values for me.
I think it's more, it's just like you're valuing the importance that work plays in your life a little bit less, which is a very important factor, I think, in this time and day. I'm like, I've got so many other things I need to be doing, and you need to start picking up sewing. We were talking about this earlier.
Yes,
you're like,
going to go buy a sewing machine.
Exactly. I think that's what you're going to be valuing more now over time. I love it. The biggest current career insecurity.
Oh, I think this is something I had when I first started. A bit of the imposter syndrome, where you're kind of like, am I the right person for this? But also when you go to those networking events and you're just like, do people want to talk to me? Like, why am I here sometimes? Just thinking all of that. And I think sometimes it's getting into your head and you're just like, just go talk to people. It's really not that bad. And I think, that's probably something that I'd say kind of still plays out sometimes, where you're just like, am I the person that should be here? And why would people want to talk to me? So that, I'd say that's something, but it was probably something worse when I started. But I've started to overcome it a little bit as time has gone on, but it's still something that's there. Imposter syndrome is very much there.
I feel that very much so. There's so many times where I'm just like, what am I? And then the networking thing is really true. And I think there was a time where there's a friend who's really good at this, where she's always someone who like
Cut that out.
She's always been someone that would pump up their people around. So she'd like, I mean, she'd be like, oh, and a conscious this and this. And she does, and I mean, it cuts out a little bit of like, there's a reason I'm here and these are the reasons, but I don't want to have to say it myself. I swear I've got something to add to this.
Yeah.
It really goes such a long way. Find like a random little friend and be like, I'll go like pump you up and you can do the same. And like, it's a little like, it's a good little collaborative effort then.
Yeah, definitely.
It helps.
Yeah. And I think when I started, because I'm petite and stuff, I'm not the tallest. And for me, I was just like, oh, like, I can't even be seen. Like, people are probably just going to pass right past me and not see me. And I think that was probably my own, like, confidence thing where I was just like, I'm not really much. So, but over time, I guess it's just like, well, no, this is you. This is who I am. So just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Owning your own little bits. I'm like, oh, that's cute. What do you not feel guilty about anymore?
What do I not feel guilty about anymore? I'd say probably working late nights. So not doing that. When I first started in my career, I was working ages and ages past what the normal working time would be. And this probably goes back to that whole realization that I need to have that work-life balance. And so I think that's something I'm not so guilty about. I think I used to think that's like an expectation, or not that anyone has said that, but maybe it was just how I was. I was always like just work, getting things done and making sure I'm always there. But now I'm just okay, no, I'll get through all the work, and yes, sometimes you work overtime and stuff, but that's fine. But just knowing that I don't have to feel guilty if I'm not staying up super late to continue with work.
That is really, really nice.
Yeah.
And I like the it really is becoming a theme, and I don't know if it's just like the like time we're in at the moment of like everyone's kind of pushing out like a bit more of like, no, self-care is important, look after yourself, work life, these are really important things. And I think like it's so hard to do it. And like fair play, like I mean cutting out that guilt is the biggest part, like of like, oh, everyone else is working and I'm not. Like it's a thing that just plays in your mind. Well,
I think you actually start becoming a little more productive as well when you're like, okay, well, these are the times I'm going to like set deadlines. And I know we both said deadlines are really important for us to get things done. It really helps with that. And rather than you be like, well, I've got all night to do this. You're like, no, after this time I'm going to stop, and then I'll like have some personal time, go for a run, do all of that.
It's like boundary setting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Setting boundaries for yourself. That's exactly how you say
like,
it.
The more time I have, the more like my work will just fill it up. Like, it's like, it'll just expand. It doesn't take 2 hours to do this job. It'll take me 20 minutes, but I will make it last 2 hours.
Exactly, yeah. I wouldn't say I'm perfect at doing it yet. But yeah, I think getting to that point where you're just like, okay, I can do this without extending it out for so long. Yeah. Yeah.
Last question. When did you first feel successful, and what does that word mean to you?
Oh, good question. When did I first feel successful? Weirdly, it's not actually something I mentioned, and I completely forgot to mention. So I also chair the D&I committee.
We will be talking about that in depth. How did I forget that?
So I also do that, and I think it was once I was elected for that, and everyone was like, oh, like, Cash, like, can you be the chair for that? We'd love it. I was just like, oh, like, this is something I'm very passionate about.
So, sorry, can you just clarify what the D&I committee is?
Yes, the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee within the organisation, so within Artesian. So, that was something that made me feel like, okay, this is something that I can take charge of, something that people think that I can carry forward, and it kind of makes you feel good, especially when you're really passionate about it as well. And so now just coming up with sort of different sort of programs and things that we can do to ensure that we're doing D&I activities, but also helping out people as well. So I think having people that think that you can do this and being elected for it, that made me feel really good. I'm just like, I want to do this. I really want to get this somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I will come back to the actual question in a minute, but literally on the way into this recording today, Grace Beverly, she's a startup queen, I swear, at this stage. She's founded like 2 or 3 businesses. I'm really obsessed with her life right now. I'm like very into just like, I go through phases with like most people. I'm like, oh, like you're doing cool stuff, I'm gonna follow you for a bit. She's also got a podcast, and she had someone on who, as a woman, like she built businesses, sold businesses, and like that was like, she's built a lot of wealth around that. And one of the things she was saying, literally, I think it was like as I was walking in and I saw you, it was like, hi, and I was like pausing the podcast. And she was just saying, it's like the only way, like the whole, like, especially in the startup space and the VC space, where like there is no equity in terms of like female funded fundings of startups and stuff. It's just so minimal. I think Australian numbers were like 0.4% or something. VC funding went to it last year. And she made a really good point of the way that changes is the more women that keep trying to get that funding. More people just try and have it happen. Majority, like not majority, but like the more people that try, the more that will succeed, and therefore be able to turn around and actually give back and implement those things back into the VC side of the world. I'm not phrasing this really well. People should just go listen to the podcast. But and I will probably tag it into the thing later.
Please do.
But that essentially was like a really big key part of why I wanted to talk to you. It was like, you are someone who understands that part of it, which was where I was like the D&I stuff. Like this is where I'm like, I don't know how I forgot about it, because I remember seeing that. I'm like, this is so great. Like that there's actual initiatives around this. Because you're kind of coming into it like and supporting that at such an early stage. It helps, and every little bit of helps, and coming at that such a low. So God, I've lost all my words and now I'm rambling, but it is important. I'm so glad you're doing that work is where I'm trying to say about that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's still just a start, but we're getting into it, and it's not only just a way to support the company and the employees, but it's also how can we help out our startups as well. We've got such a huge portfolio of startups. How do we help them out? Is there stuff that they will need that we can help them out with? So really doing all of that. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love that. So that was when you first felt successful. Oh my God, English is not happening for me today. So that was when you first felt successful, and I really like, that's a really cool one. I think I really like that. And what does success mean to you?
Success to me, I guess for me, it's really being happy. And it might sound really corny, but for me, it's being sitting there like, I'm really happy with where I'm at, where I'm taking things. That's really success to me. Just coming to that realizing you're like, I'm happy.
That feeling of just being content. Nothing beats it.
Yeah,
like, honestly,
exactly.
I had that a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, I'll be fine. I'm grand. I've made it here. I'm okay. And I think that was a very philosophical way to end the conversation, to be honest. But thank you so much for coming in and all the work that you're doing in supporting and getting so many businesses out there and just building them up to where they need to be and go forth.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me. And this was a fun chat.
I'm glad. Hopefully the nerves didn't kick in too much. I'm like, the aim usually is just like, no, we're just 2 people chatting and I'm just like really interested in your life. Like that, hopefully that felt like that.
It was really good. Thank you. You made it very comfortable.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. Look, we'll wrap it up there. I'll put there's going to be so many links to this episode, honestly. But I will put all the kind of collaterals and stuff that I can find, and people can go look up yourself and see what else you've been up to, all the businesses you've helped. But yeah, I will put all the things in the details. We'll be back again in about 2 weeks' time with another episode. But until then, I guess keep yourself safe, like and subscribe. God, I can't believe I'm one of those people that says that now, but like it would be great to get all these things that we talk about out there in the world. But this was a really good episode, especially kind of focusing on taking the breaks and looking after yourself. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Amazing. Thanks so much.
Perfect.